say hello to our MLB panel DraftKings contributors, Nick Friar and RotoWire's Erik Halterman. It is time, gentlemen, for MLB Price Check. Getting your favorite plays in the following price ranges for tonight's 14-game MLB slate. So a lot of choices, a pitcher over 9K. Nick, who is catching your eye?
Well, of course, you like Kevin Gausman tonight going up against the Cardinals, but I'm actually going to go with Robbie Ray up against the Texas Rangers at 9.3K. The Rangers are third in plate appearances per strikeout this month against left-handed pitching. And, of course, you don't need me to tell you that Robbie Ray strikes out a ton of hitters. His over-under on his strikeout prop tonight on DraftKings Sportsbook is at 8.5. In his last 6 of his last 8 outings, he's logged at 24 plus DK fantasy points. His swinging strike rate this season is 15.3, and he's getting hitters to chase pitches out of the zone a lot. And he is one of the 5 best in all of baseball at making hitters miss those pitches. So I'm very comfortable with Robbie Ray at 9.3K tonight against the Rangers.
All right, 9.3K. Erik, where are you going?
Yeah, Ray is my top option as well. He was really quite bad last year in basically every way. I mean, that ERA 6.62 was well-deserved. Shockingly bad 17.9% walk rate, 24.3% ground ball rate. Just nowhere close to playable in either of those areas, but he's completely fixed everything. Has his usual excellent strikeout rate, well north of 30%. He's walking below average amount of guys this season, 6.2%, and that ground ball rate is back up above 40%. You might expect with a guy like him, given the state of pitching these days, that maybe there was a sticky stuff situation there improving his numbers dramatically, but that doesn't seem to be the case. There's been no evidence of changes in his spin rate. And since the start of June, he has a 2.40 ERA with double-digit strikeouts in 4 of his last 7 starts. So this rebound couldn't be more real, I don't think. And to be fair, he has reached more or less this level in the past. It was a little while ago, but it's a lot easier to believe it when it's not completely out of nowhere. So even though he was terrible last season, I'm fully in on Robbie Ray as back at close to that ace level, facing a Rangers lineup that really isn't very good, 20th by WRC Plus this season. I think he's more or less as good as Gausman, who, like Nick, I do like quite a lot too, but Ray's just as good and $1,000 cheaper, so I think he's the top option.
Well, Erik, there are 4 pitchers only over 9K. So what about a guy who is under 9K that you like?
Yeah, I'm actually going to drop all the way down to Chris Paddock at 6,300, one of the cheapest guys on the slate. And I guess it's not hard to see why if you look at his 5.38 ERA. But most of the ERA estimators like him a whole lot better than that. FIP has him at 383. XFIP has him at 360. Both of those would be a very solid mid-rotation starter. His strikeout rate is close to league average at 24.2%, as is his ground ball rate. But when you combine that with a walk rate of just 5.4%, that really should be a good pitcher. There's plenty of pitchers who have success with that kind of profile, just limiting walks at a very good clip while not really having any other clear weaknesses. It's more or less what he did in his rookie season. His strikeout rate's down a couple ticks, but his ground ball rate is up a little bit more to make up for that. He is in a pretty poor stretch, 11.48 ERA over his last 4 starts, but he can blame a 4.40 BABIP for some of that. And some of the ERA estimators like XFIP for 4.33 over that stretch isn't what you want, but it's not terrible. Even pitching like a 4.33 ERA kind of starter would probably justify a price this low. And I think should be better than that against the Nationals team that's right in the middle of the pack in terms of WRC Plus on the season, but they're without Kyle Schwarber, whose hot streak probably accounts for about 5 points in the standings there. So I think it's an easy enough matchup, and I think he's a lot better than he's shown so far. Not a star, but definitely not a $6,300 player.
Well, Erik is giving us major value. Nick, which pitcher under 9K do you like?
Well, I think Paddock is a good play if you're pairing him up with either Gausman or Robbie Ray, but there was a couple guys in the 8K range and just below that I was looking at. Of course, Chris Bassett going against Cleveland tonight. That is my pick, but also Tyler Mahle up against the Brewers, and then you have Marcus Stroman up against the Pirates, who You're not going to get the strikeouts there necessarily as much. So him at 7.9K makes a little bit more sense. But I'm going with Bassett. I know he gave up a run in the All-Star game, but I believe it was unearned. He got a couple of strikeouts. More importantly for him, this is a guy who faced the same team 3 times in his last 4 outings before the All-Star break. So I think he's just going to welcome the chance to face any team that isn't the Texas Rangers right now. But when it comes to Cleveland, they're striking out quite a bit versus righties this month. They are 6th in plate appearances per strikeouts in July. And their numbers outside of that, they're middle of the pack against righties. So this is, I think, a good matchup for him. And you compare him maybe with Amali, and then you have 2 8K guys. Of course, you got to find a little savings elsewhere, but we'll get to that with hitting.
All right, yeah, let's get into hitting, Nick. So the most expensive bat, Vlad Guerrero Jr., he's going to cost you $6,400. Shohei Ohtani, $6,300. If you're looking at a hitter over 5K, Nick, where are you going?
I mean, it's no shock that those guys are extremely expensive after the All-Star game, especially with Vladdy Jr. But I'm actually looking at the Coors Field game tonight. We got Mookie Betts and the Dodgers over playing against the Rockies. And I'm going with Mookie tonight at 5.5K because, look, I know you first think, all right, he's one of the All-Stars that didn't go and play in the All-Star game. So he's well rested. That's huge for me going into this. And he's going up against a guy in Senzatella who the over-under on his hits allowed prop on DraftKings Sportsbook is at 6.5, which I haven't seen that happen that often with guys this season, but he's averaged 7+ hits in every outing since May 28th. That outing was only 4 innings long, so we couldn't, how are you going to reach the mark there? But this is a guy who gets hit quite a bit, whether it's at Coors, whether it's on the road, whether he's got, doesn't give up a lot of runs or he gives up, quite a few runs. And when it comes to Betts versus Senzatella, 11 career plate appearances, so not a ton, but still 2 home runs and a double in those chances. So I have no problem. I haven't backed Mookie a ton this season. I don't know if I have at all on the show, but at 5.5K tonight against a guy who he's hit well against, I have no problem with that.
All right, Erik, a hitter over 5K that you're targeting.
Yeah, I'm going with Matt Olsen at 5,300. He's a guy I've gotten to a decent amount lately. He's the second highest scoring first baseman in terms of DraftKings points per game, yet he's only the 7th most expensive. And I think while that remains true, he's going to be a good choice whenever he gets the platoon advantage against a starter like Eli Morgan, who has an 8.44 ERA through 4 starts. Kind of all you need to say there. He's allowed 8 homers, thanks in large part to a ground ball rate that sits at just 20.9%, the 3rd lowest among pitchers who've thrown at least 20 innings. And a guy who can't keep the ball on the ground is exactly who I'm looking to pick on with a power hitter like Olsen. Although Olsen is more than just a power hitter these days, he's suddenly become an all-around elite hitter. He'd always had the power. He'd averaged just shy of 40 homers per 162 games heading into this season, but he had a batting average that's at just 245 through the end of last year. And actually last year alone, he hit just 195 while striking out 31.4% of the time. He's cut that strikeout rate almost in half this season, and it's led to a 282 batting average that's backed up by a 272 expected batting average. And again, hasn't sacrificed any power. 23 homers already this season, has him on a pace of 43 per 162 games, so even slightly more power than he's shown in the past. So he's I think, emerging as a true all-around star at the plate, and he's got one of the best matchups. So I think it's a pretty easy choice at first base.
All right, Erik, how about a hitter under 5K if you're looking for like a little bit of value to sprinkle into your lineup here?
Yeah, let's go all the way down to the minimum price at 2,000. We've got another rookie debuting, Jaren Duran, the Red Sox outfielder. All these guys seem to be coming in at 2,000, and they're great values, at least their first few games, until they rise to where we'd expect them to sit. I wouldn't expect Duran to rise, as much as a guy like Wander Franco. We're not talking about that level of prospect here, but Duran is quite a highly rated young player. He wasn't as much heading into last season, but he had a swing change at the alternate site. Basically one of those guys who said, maybe I should try to hit home runs, and then started hitting home runs. It's an interesting strategy, but it's working out quite well for him. He's hitting the ball in the air well more than ever before and pulling the ball well more than ever before. Homer just 8 times in 199 pro games before this season, and already has 15 in 46 games this year. Strikeout rate didn't rise too much either to go along with it, just 23.7%. Also gets some steals too, so he can help you out there. He'll get the platoon advantage as a lefty in Yankee Stadium against Domingo Germán, who's fine but not scary at all. Although at his minimum price, I think you like him against most guys. I will note that there might be some COVID risk with this game, given that last night's game got canceled. So you could also look to Jared Kelenic, who's coming back up and is also minimum priced. He won't get the platoon advantage against lefty Andrew Heaney, but again, he's far better than a $2,000 player, even if he didn't show it in his first stint. So I'd like either of those rookies tonight.
Serious value. What about you, Nick? A hitter under 5K?
Well, Erik brings up Andrew Heaney, and for me, Heaney is a guy that when I see his name pop up, my antennas go right up. This is a guy I love to target, and a guy that I love to use up against lefties is Mitch Haniger, especially when the price is right. We've seen him kind of go up and down with his price throughout the course of the season. Right now, it's a little bit down at 4.1K, and it's kind of understandable. Look, he's still putting up good numbers against left-handed pitching, but he's coming off of he's a little bit slower, been a little bit slower this month, and he's coming off a slow month too, especially in terms of power, which is what we're going to him for. I think he had 6 and 8 home runs in his first 2 months of the season. But against Heaney, again, you guys know that I love to go with batter versus pitcher's numbers, especially when it comes to my value picks. Got called out for it yesterday. But with Haniger, he has 20 career plate appearances against Heaney. Again, small sample size, but when I see a ton of power in that short period, I am going to back that guy, especially with value plays. And Haniger has 3 home runs and a triple against Heaney in those 20 career plate appearances. So he's my play tonight at under 5K.